Hello and welcome to another episode of The Corporate Etiquette, a show where we break down the corporate world so you can make better sense of it. My name is Laura, and in this episode, I want to talk about the benefits of having long-term career goals and how to go about setting them. So when I say that you should have long-term career goals, what does that mean? Well, it means that in your head you should have a title that you want to achieve within a certain time frame. And I know a lot of people say that titles don't matter. However, this is not true. So I would say don't buy into that rhetoric. However, if you are one of those people who doesn't really like to think of themselves in terms of a title, there is a different way to do it. Namely, you have to understand what is important to you and what is the next milestone in achieving that. After you've identified what that next milestone is, then you need to figure out a reasonable time frame to achieve it. Setting goals for yourself can seem maybe tedious or even scary because if you set yourself some goals, then you also set yourself up for the chance that you might not achieve them. Nobody likes to feel like a failure, especially when there's no outside pressure to feel so. However, you shouldn't let that stop you from deciding what you want to do in your career long term. In my opinion, here are some of the benefits of having a long-term career goal. First and foremost, it gives you direction. It gives you a sense of purpose beyond the average day-to-day. I'm sure that this is true for all of us, that you wake up one day and you just think to yourself, oh my God, I can't believe that 3 months just passed by, or it's the end of the quarter. And trying to think back at this quarter that has just passed, it's kind of all of an amorphous blob. Nothing really stands out. You don't really know, have you progressed? Are you stagnating? What's going on? It's just kind of nothing memorable there. And let me say that this is not necessarily a bad thing, and it happens most definitely to everybody. I know it happens to me, and I'm pretty sure just anybody that works a regular corporate job has gone through this experience at one point or another. However, it's really easy to fall into the trap of feeling comfortable in your job and then suddenly the amorphous blob of time where there is nothing memorable just keeps on getting longer and longer and longer, and before you know it, you're 2 to 3 years into a job and you're not really sure what you've achieved in it. That's why having a long-term goal is actually acting like a lighthouse. You can see the direction far into the future and you know where you're heading. And even if, let's say you have some time lapse where, well, nothing memorable happens or you didn't do much progress, that's totally fine. That's normal. You are, in fact, human. I hope you're human. If you're a robot watching these videos, please give a like so that I know I'm popular with the AI crowd. But aside from that, when you wake up from such a period where you feel like you didn't progress at all, you can take a deep breath, recenter yourself, and then try to figure out how to go towards the light at the end of the tunnel. The second benefit of having a long-term goal is that it gives you the opportunity to assess what you need to do in order to get there. It's actually quite common to be influenced in our perception by either how other people are progressing or by our own skewed view of where we should be in our professional careers. For example, maybe you know somebody or you've heard of someone who up until this point had a similar career path to you. You both are roughly the same age, you're roughly the same schools, you work roughly the same jobs, but suddenly this person is so much far ahead since the last time you checked in. Maybe you're still a regular product manager, a senior product manager, and this person is a director of product or maybe a CPO at a smaller company. This can be not only frustrating, but also intimidating, and it adds, whether we like it or not, a lot of pressure on ourselves to think, oh my God, am I falling behind? Should I do more things? Am I not good enough? What's going on? Of course, everybody that knows me in my personal life knows I am an advocate for some self-criticism. However, this doesn't mean that looking at that person is the right thing. Instead, if you are looking at your long-term career goal, then you need to assess where you are compared to that goal, not necessarily to what other people around you are doing. Always basing how you're progressing against other people might not be a sustainable way because maybe they have different advantages than you, maybe they have different opportunities. Sometimes it is just about luck. And also, that distracts you from the fact that you need to work on yourself. You need to be realistic with what goals you need to achieve or you need to learn in order to get to what your goal is. Think of your goal as a tool to keep you grounded, something to help keep your expectations realistic, something to help you understand what the next step is for you, not comparing yourself to anybody else. And listen, I'm not saying you're never going to feel professional jealousy ever again. I'm simply saying that being honest with yourself, understanding what you want and where you want to go is better than always looking around to see how you're doing. The third benefit of having a long-term career goal is that it actually gives you a way to measure progress against a point in the future. Similar to how I mentioned before that sometimes there is a span of time that is not really memorable and it's kind of an amorphous blob, so is the future. In a way, we see it as this amorphous blob of time and we have so much time ahead of us because we're young and fun and all that jazz. And then suddenly it's 3 years later and you're like, oh my God, what just happened? Where am I? What's going on? Did I do what I was supposed to? And again, I'm not kicking anybody that has experienced this. I've also experienced it. Everybody experienced at one point thinking that they have more time than they actually do. And this is actually where having a long-term career goal is really going to benefit you because you can measure where you are now, where you need to be in X amount of time, and then you can work backwards to understand what are the milestones that you need to hit in order to be more or less on track to achieve your goals. So let me give you a personal example of how I did this for myself. When I first started ad booking, I got hired as a core product manager, and I set the goal for myself that in 5 years' time, I would be able to apply to head of product in either within booking or within an external company. This means that I had 5 years to get to senior product manager, then get some experience managing people or mentoring other product managers, and then eventually I would be eligible to advance to the head of product role. Based on what I thought was a reasonable time frame, I thought, okay, if right now I am a core product manager, then it means that within at most 2 years, I need to get promoted to senior product manager. So I really need to work towards that promotion, and that is going to be my first milestone. And at the same time, if I miss that milestone, I also know that it's not going to be realistic to achieve my long-term career goal within those 5 years, because obviously all of the milestones will move. And I'm happy to report that I am actually on track to achieve my goal because I did actually make it to senior product manager. And now I know that my next milestone is actually getting to manage some people. And that is the skill and the opportunity that I am focusing most of my efforts towards. As you can see, having a long-term goal, having that 5-year plan made me realize whether or not my career is progressing as I would want it to be. Are we in the best case scenario or are we deviating from the plan? And when things didn't go according to plan, this also allowed me to very clearly step back and understand that if I don't do something to get things back on track, I'm simply not going to achieve what I want. I'm not going where I want to go. So something needs to change, something needs to happen in order to get me back on track. And I'm going to use this to kind of like segue into the next part, which is how do you set long-term career goals? Well, let me tell you that the first part is actually evaluating where you are right now as part of your career path. First and foremost, you need to understand where you are in the traditional career path as part of your craft. So for example, if you watching right now would be a junior product manager, then the traditional career path would go to senior product manager afterwards, then to either principal or group product manager, and from the group product manager path, you'd go to director, CPO, and so on. And usually the principal product manager is kind of a terminal position if you do not want to go into managing people. After you've taken the time to understand where you are in the traditional career path, as well as accounting for different titles that there might be across the industry, sometimes they're not very unified, you also need to understand what are the skills that you need in order to make the next step. Not all of the steps, just the next one. Maybe it's the craft itself. Maybe you need to get better at negotiating or influencing without authority. Maybe you need to get better at document writing or better presentations. Whatever that might be, you need to understand the skill gap that you need to cover in order to have a solid foundation for your progress. Now, of course, identifying what skills you need is just the first part of the process. You also need to come up with a plan on how to bridge that gap. Are you going to get more training? Does your workplace have any training that you can take in order to mend this bridge? Or is it something that you might have to look for outside of your own company? While friends and mentors are a good resource to help you be brutally honest with yourself and make sure that you don't leave any skills unmarked in your little analysis, they can also help you find opportunities in order to improve those skills. Maybe your mentor has connections with certain trainers, or maybe they have a class online that they really like and they would recommend that you take. Whatever that might be, if you find that you cannot come up with any sort of idea on how to improve a certain skill, definitely go out and ask for help. There is nothing wrong with asking for help. You're just trying to better yourself. And I think you'll find that people are very supportive of mentoring or lending a helping hand. The last part of setting a long-term career goal is actually asking yourself another pretty tough question. Namely, is there a conflict between what makes you happy and what you have to optimize for? In the previous section, I gave an example of the career path for a product manager. However, I think that a lot of the tech jobs have a somewhat similar career path. Namely, you can go all the way to individual contributor as a principal, and then that's kind of a terminal state, and then you can also move to people management and go further into that. Setting goals is a little bit like wishful thinking, right? It's thinking, okay, if the next 5 years or 7 years or 10 years, however long your planning horizon is, if all of these years go according to plan, then I will be at this point in time in that title, I will be making this much money, and these will be my responsibilities. And that is what I want for myself, professionally speaking. Recently, I found myself speaking to some people and realizing that they're actually conflicted between what they want and what the traditional career path actually is. A very common thing that I hear talking to developers is, I like to code. I just want to code. I'm really good at coding and I just want to do that. I don't want to go to meetings and I don't want to manage people. So why can't I just keep progressing in my career and getting more and more money and better titles as I go along? The very simple answer to that is that's simply not a career path that is available in most companies to most people. Are there exceptions? Yes, of course. But those are very, very few exceptions. But here I really want to encourage people when they are thinking about where they want to go, what would make them happy 5 years from now, is to just be honest and accept the reality as it is. If you do not want to manage people, that is perfectly fine. That is a perfectly valid choice. There is nothing wrong with that choice. However, we also have to understand that as individual contributors, there's only so much business impact that we can have upon the company. Even if you write the best code, even if you are the best product manager or program manager, the best of the best UX designer or marketing specialist, you can only do so much as one single person. And that's why the career path simply doesn't go as far for individual contributors as it does for people that go into management, because ultimately, and I know we're not talking about bad managers here, but ultimately the true purpose of a good manager is to enable many people to do the best work that they can in a way that is not wasteful, in a way that is productive, and in a way that hopefully also make them happy at their workplace. So you need to understand what makes you happy. For example, if writing code is what makes you happy, but at the same time you also want to progress in your career past the principal developer, I don't know if your company has something above that, then maybe it's time to understand how you can still be a good manager despite not wanting to manage people, and how you can take on maybe some hobbies or personal projects that will still give you that coding element that you will, well, simply not get any longer in your day-to-day job. Because let's face it, once you become a manager, your tasks are going to be related a lot more about negotiations or road mapping than doing the job you did before. I really hope that I'm not giving off the impression that this is an easy exercise to choose between what makes you happy in the long run and what the traditional career path is, and usually that career path comes with more and more monetary incentives as you go along. It's a difficult choice, and I do understand that it can also be a frustrating choice. But you need to either come to terms with how things are or understand what kind of an arrangement can you have in order to make sure that you are both happy and pursuing a traditional career path. At the very, very end, I do also want to leave you with a disclaimer. Just because you set goals, long-term goals for 5 or 10 years from now, it doesn't mean that they are immutable. Listen, the personal goal police is not going to come busting down your door in the middle of the night asking you why you changed your goal or why you're not on track for it. This is something that you do to help yourself. This is a tool to enable your future self to be just as you imagine them. However, I'm assuming you left your crystal ball in your other pants and you do not, in fact, know what the future holds. Maybe you're going to get a great opportunity that you never could have thought about that is going to propel you into a completely different career or in a different lifestyle. Don't think that you have to completely ignore those just because, well, you have a 5-year plan and oh my God, what's going to happen if you don't achieve that? We're not here to lock ourselves into certain predefined options. We're simply here to give ourselves a realistic frame of reference on how our career is going, free as much as possible from outside interference or professional jealousy. You're simply trying to keep yourself accountable, to keep yourself on track, and to give yourself a tool to fight the sunken cost effect when you are assessing opportunities. Let me know in the comments how you set your long-term career goals, or if you've never done it before, if you're going to try to do it now. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, go ahead and give it a like because it does put this video in front of more and more people and it really helps out the channel. And if you want to see more videos from me and break down how the corporate world works, then click subscribe and ring that bell so you get notified every time I put out a new video. That's it for today. Have a good one.